I'm going to talk about pawn shops here. Not a pawn shop versus banks. Pawn shops, in light of just understanding what they are and why people should care, be concerned. With everything going the way of the digital dollar, or, your CBDC, central bank digital currency, whatever you're going to call it, FedCoin or what it's going to be called, that is taking the power away from you and I, taking the power away from the consumer. The everyday man and woman, family. And it's taken away freedom, bare bones, freedom itself. And I just want to do a little history of this and to say, if you have a bad thought of them or a bad taste in your mouth of pawn shops, maybe you look into it a little more. I don't own a pawn shop, that kind of stuff. That I have nothing to do with it other than researching and looking into things, looking at options that are out there and may be out there. So I'm just going to go down this a little bit. So the history of pawn shops, some people say, you ask 4 people, you're going to get 4 different answers. They all will have threads of absolute truth to them on where it started, when it started, that kind of stuff. And they all will have more truth of things that, how they started, but that might not be the right timing or might not be the initial ones that took over. But we're just going to take it from there. We'll just go with one theory. Is the earliest known pawnbrokers were in the 5th century of China. The establishments were owned and created by Buddhist monks. Wealthy people, lay people sometimes, chose to form partnerships with Buddhists, monasteries, so that they could open pawn shops while avoiding certain types of taxes. Like monasteries were exempt from paying. Records, so there are records from 1202, so 1202, the year date. Memorial in China showed that a group of 10 people formed an association with a monastery, which then backed the establishment of a pawn shop. So the word pawn itself comes from a Latin word pantinum, meaning cloth or clothing. Clothes were actually often the most valuable items working people owned. The practice of pawning clothes on Monday and retrieving them on Friday, / payday, goes all the way back to the 19th century. Since people in need of quick cash were more likely to be on the fringes of society, back then measures prevent the pawning of stolen items, and so on and so forth, the bad raps, that kind of stuff. The Pawnbrokers Act of 1872 laid the groundwork for regulations that protected pawnbrokers who inadvertently received stolen items or dealt with stolen items. They had no idea about it. They sold these stolen items and they were protected to a certain amount. They lost out, but they're still protected on a lawful, claim. This also capped the amount of interest that could be charged and set guidelines overall for the industry. This paved the industry and the way in a pattern of regulation that's still in place today on the pawnbrokers' pawn shops. So, for example, during the Depression, pawn shops were many times the only place a man or a woman could go to get cash. Banks were failing and could not help. Many people found themselves forced to give up their cherished belongings in order to pay bills and keep food on the table for themselves and their families. Even today, pawn shops are one of the only places that a person can go to turn their belongings into cash quickly when there's a drastic need or an unexpected need arises. They serve people of all class backgrounds as a place to buy and sell unique items or items that hold some sort of wealth, preservation to them, like your metals, your gold, your silver, tools, that kind of stuff. Anything that is normally seen as having some sort of monetary value to it, wealth, use, that kind of stuff. Consumers are poorly, so on that note, consumers are poorly served by traditional banks. Overall, this is today, this isn't the Depression days, but this is now a statement. Consumers are poorly served by traditional banks, lending them to use pawn shops. So because banks are so poorly servicing people that leads the people to use pawn shops, a good amount of people. And alternative, sources of credit in society. There's those fast cash places, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about that, but there are other avenues that people use and don't use banks because of that reason. Consumers are poorly, I said that. A recent survey found that 32% of pawn shop regulars have no bank account versus 14% of Americans and an 8% of American households. Respondents without a bank account offered multiple explanations for why they don't have any relationship with the bank. 67% said that they didn't have enough money to open an account. 37% claimed not to trust banks overall, nothing. And 31% said that there were too many fees and too many charges overall. So that's the reasoning why some people shy away from banks altogether. According to a 2014 Pew Trust survey, 30% of Americans with bank accounts have incurred overdraft fees. Not enough money in your account, non-sufficient funds in your account. So you get these fees, $25, $30, $40 fees for being overdrawn. The PogGuru survey shows that over 70% of pawn shop regulars with accounts have, according to Bernholz, he's one of the specialists around here helping write this article, or leading information for this article, that indicates that the concerns of pawn shop regulars, about the costs of banking are well founded. So the concerns of your normal your pawn shop regulars that are always almost using the pawn shops, selling stuff, exchanging stuff, that kind of stuff, purchasing from there, all that kind of stuff, they have some sort of normal or regular relationship with pawn shops. They're saying are well aware, and they're shy away because of the cost of banking and the fees and everything else that goes, that's involved with it. And it doesn't say corruption here, but I would add that to it also. So the survey also found that 48% of pawn shop regulars have used a payday lending service. 39% of pawn shop regulars used a check cashing, counter or center. 30% of pawn shop regulars, have used a payday advanced store, so a payday advance account deal. And Future Digital Security, they found that Future Digital Security, there's no privacy in banks at all. There's none now. Not even in the future digital security. They're saying there's none now. There's still privacy with pawn shops and interacting, that kind of stuff, a way to get a loan or a way to sell something or whatever the case is. Pawn shops to replace banks in the future, ? So here's another statement from an article I was reading. Many people believe that pawn shops to be an evil industry, funding terrorists and drug users. There are some 50 plus million people in the country without bank accounts. For that matter, any sort of savings at all. They have nothing, no savings account in the bank. And credit, so no credit established at all because they don't belong to banks. Don't interact with them, nothing like that. So lack of banking relationships make it nearly impossible to obtain any kind of loan from a bank, period. That's what it is. You may not be in debt at all, and you may have tons of assets, but you're not a regular at a bank. You have no loans anywhere, no reason to need a credit for anything, for a home, for a house, for a car, for anything. You have no credit score. Because of that, no matter how much your wealth is that you may have or not, it doesn't matter. That little score just shows how much in debt you are and how much in debt you have been and how you've treated it. That's all they care about. So they're talking there, bank relationships make it nearly impossible to obtain any kind of loan from a bank if you don't have a relationship, like I was talking about. The pawn industry fills that gap, period. So if you're not doing any kind of stuff with a bank, business with a bank, here's a pawn shop. It fills that hole, fills that void. So it helps people obtain some kind of quick money when a bank says no. Many monetary customers of pawn shops include politicians, movie stars, sports figures, and business owners. Things you can pawn: guns, any type, any condition, must have a firing pin. That's usually the only stipulation. Tools, hand tools, manual tools, power tools, anything. Good condition, the better. If it's not in great condition, but it's a very, very serviceable tool, a tool that's very in need or desired, yeah, give it a try. Musical instruments, guitars, violins, everything, harmonicas, everything musical instrument-wise, drums, and then collectible coins and stamps. And how much you're going to get if you're selling or you're getting a loan against them depends, like everything, depends on condition and how much history it has to it. Is it some sort of antique? Is it sought after? How much, you're talking gold and silver, how much gold is in it? How much silver is? What's the weight of it? All that kind of stuff. Jewelry, same sort of deal. How much gold is it? Does it have jewels, diamonds? What other jewels? Does it have all of your stones that are supposed to be in there? The shape of it, and as always, the weight of the precious metals. If it's silver, if it's gold, if it's platinum, if it's X, Y, Z. We have those are the main ones that people know about, but there's other ones, like high-end fashion items can be sold and pawned for some sort of loan. Designer handbags, watches, even some high-end clothing. Artwork, paintings, sculptures, that kind of stuff, anything that falls in the realm of artwork. Household appliances, TVs, computers, refrigerator, blender even, high-end, food processor kind of stuff, high-end juicers, all that. There's home decorations, so you got like couches, chairs, furniture, maybe some sort of, decorative stuff that hang on the walls, whatever. Cookware, so pots, pans, dishes, landscaping equipment. We have like any sort of lawnmowers, your weed whippers, any other larger, landscaping stuff. We're going on the tractor stuff, the implementation, big stuff too, smaller yard work stuff, camping gear, tents, sleeping bags, cots, that kind of stuff. We have workout equipment, treadmills, ellipticals, weights, all that kind of deal. We have sport equipment, golf clubs, fishing rods, any other stuff for sporting stuff. Maybe some pads, protective gear like pads, balls, your footballs, your basketballs, golf balls, all that kind of stuff. It all depends on shape and what kind of demand they may or may not have. We have children's items, car seats, cribs, strollers, beds, not just cribs themselves, the children's beds, that kind of deal, all that stuff for babies, maybe even like a pump for milk, that kind of deal. Just look into it. Gaming systems, and these are always, it all depends on how new they are, how old they are, the shape of them, how in demand they are, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo stuff, all that, all those are, you can give it a try, give it a shot, see. Other entertainment, books are huge, and that depends on condition and demand and that kind of stuff. Nowadays, not so much CDs, DVDs. If they're rare, they're sought after, yes. Vinyl records, absolutely, that kind of stuff. Board games even. There's board games, so they're just your common board game. Not so much, but if you have, you might get a little bit for it, but if you have other board games that are 20 years old and they haven't made them in 20 years and they limited back then, yeah, absolutely, there'll be a higher price on that you could possibly borrow against, loan against, or even sell, that kind of stuff. And I just want to go over this quickly. I thought this was really interesting. We'll try to get through fast because I know I'm burning up clock here. Here's an interesting list I found. The only existing business records of a 19th century pawn shop in New York City on August 21st, 1838. This was a typical day of the items they purchased and sold and that kind of stuff with some of the prices, the amounts there. Like a clock, 75 cents. 2 coats and a razor, $3.50. Another coat, maybe a woman's coat, $4. Accordion, $2. A pistol, 50 cents. Blanket, coat, and book, 75 cents. Apron, 6 cents. 3 books were $2.37. Pair of spectacles, 62 cents. A vest was a quarter, 25 cents. A tablespoon, $1.50, so that might have depended on the rarity or sought after, that kind of stuff. 2 sheets and a petticoat with 50 cents. We have a shawl for 25 cents, a shirt for 50 cents, a brooch for 35 cents, gold watch, chain, so a watch and a chain kind of deal, and key was $18. A fur coat, $4. Quilt, $3. Pair of lamps, 12 cents. A violin, $4. Pair of pants, $1. Box of jewelry, $1. We had a jacket, pants, and vest, $4. A necklace, $1. Music box, $1. Handkerchief, 12 cents. A coffee box, $30. A table cover, $1. Umbrella, 50 cents. Silver medal, 250 cents. This list, I didn't go through them all. There's some other stuff on here too, but it just provides a great deal of variety and things that the pawn brokers back then were taking and selling and exchanging, dealing with, and then you put that out today. Some of those things. Let's see, like what they have there. A violin back then might be compared to a guitar nowadays, type of deal. The music box that was in here might be today's CD player or iPod or whatever. The pocket watch, the chain pocket watch that was listed here might be equivalent to a fancy high-end wristwatch or a cheaper wristwatch, whatever, a Casio or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just saying this stuff just to say they're out there and you'll see them all the time, all over in smaller towns, smaller cities. A lot of pawn shops, especially in some of the southern areas or some of the not so blown out city-wise areas of different states, different counties, that kind of stuff. And maybe you want to just stop in there and say, hey, and just see what's going on. Look around. Maybe let's get some ideas rolling for whatever, preparedness or just for a gift for someone, or maybe you're looking for some fast cash 6 months down the road and you're like, hey, I was at that place and I know about them a little bit, and maybe we should try this or get rid of this and we need fast cash. We'll have cash in a week from now. We can just, put it there, get the cash, do what we got to do with it, and then we'll buy it back, later on Friday when they're open, or back on next Monday when they're open, or Tuesday when they're open, whatever the case may be. So it's out there, it's an option, and I suggest people get out there and just stop in some of them, and just give it a shot, give it a chance. I know I put on videos here that we had moved. I was like over a year now, getting closer to a year and a half, right around the corner, or soon. And that was one of the first places I went into within a couple weeks, was one of the local pawn shops here. Just because I wanted to say hey, and someone had told me to stop by and just let them know you're around and you're new here and that kind of stuff. And it's been great because I've been down there many times since. And it's been great having that relationship with them. I haven't really done much business with them, a little bit, but if I ever need to, I have that relationship now. He knows me, I know him. I can call him up quickly if I have any questions, whatever. So I just suggest get out there. Especially in your community, get to know who's out there. And for places like that are, I don't want to say equivalent to a bank, but can replace the bank for its many features. If you ever need money faster or have issues or credit issues or whatever the case may be, there's always that option. So I just want to say, I just want people to get out there and just look into things, like I said, a little bit. A little bit more if you're doing it, a lot more if you're, doing it a lot. And maybe start and do it some, and then it will grow. But anyways, as always, I thank you for watching. If you like this, hit like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And stay vigilant. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your health, and protect your wealth.